Vertical Pursuit, episode number 66 is where we're at, I believe. Pastor Tatlock in the comfortable chair, and Mike Barrett with you as well. Sorry, I'm dealing with cords. We got to talk first about. We might have. Well, maybe we didn't mention it. Our last episode, we had Matt Taylor, which was awesome, by the way.
That was so good.
And it was Matt so good to hear. I know a lot of guys who've listened to that, and Matt, some guys are really comfortable and they want to hear themselves interviewed and on mic. And Matt was kind of funny after he said, I don't know if I'm going to listen to this because I'm not really comfortable. I said, dude. And then I think he's gotten affirmation from a lot of guys who have heard him and just kind of the depth of his knowledge on this stuff and his, he's got a ton of experience. So if you haven't heard that episode, go back 1 to 65 and listen to Matt.
Yeah.
But we might have mentioned, but I'm not sure if we did, that we were going elk hunting.
Yeah.
And we did.
We did.
And we both
elk down, baby.
Both got an elk, which was it was and we weren't even there that long because the wildfires kind of chased us out before we wanted to. We were planning on staying longer, and fires were so bad over there. And I mean, shout out to all those guys and girls fighting fires, Oregon and Idaho and like California too. But in Washington, they've had bad fires, and I don't know why. It didn't feel like that hot of a summer.
No. But
it got to this point, and there was a lot of lightning on that one night we were there, and we're like, oh. And then the fact that one took off like it did, that Monday morning fire that went from nothing, right when we were field dressing your elk.
Yep.
And we're like, what is that? That plume of smoke. And
all
of
a sudden, nuke just went off.
Yeah, then it looked like
it did.
Somebody had dropped an atom bomb.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, what was crazy is you turned me on to the app, Watch Duty.
Watch Duty's a great app.
And I know
all the time now.
I know some other guys, Mark Gaiman, who's a fireman, and shout out to Mark, and good friend as well too, brother. He also mentioned it, and he's a fireman, first responder. And when you brought it up, we were out there. So here we are out in the Ochocos, which is out past Prineville, Central Oregon. And if you pull that app up, which kind of records the fires in the Northwest, California, it looks like the whole Northwest is just scorched earth.
Yeah.
Fires everywhere.
Yeah, but yes. And what I had to go and look at on there is it's recording every fire.
Every fire.
So if a truck catches fire in a campground, it will record it. So you have these little logos on the map, and it gets scary. But there's one that was, close to 200,000 acres.
Yeah.
And
those were the big ones
to get them down.
Ours was significant where we were. We could have stayed overnight. The encouragement was the highway, the main highway that we had to drive out on, had officially gone into evacuation.
I thought they were going to close that highway.
Yep.
That's why I took off.
Yeah. So anyways, we're grateful that it didn't get to the property we were hunting, but the hunt was sick. So the first night we got out there, you and I, we took off by ourselves, and our parties split up so we could cover more ground, and we got onto 2 or 3 bulls?
3 bulls.
3 bulls.
And this is so fun to stalk. And we didn't have bull tags, but we figured there'd be cows with them, but there weren't. But to walk in and get, I don't know what we were. I don't want to say a quarter mile, maybe an eighth of a mile away, and then you spotted them before you see better further than I do, but could see them down in this meadow. And the funny thing about elk is they don't see exceptionally well, at least we hear that, but they smell and they hear from great distances, and they're hard to hunt. They're crafty. But then to walk in, and we got within a couple 100 yards of them, kind of belly crawled the last way.
Too.
That was really fun. And it's always like as the sun's going down, so you're trying to beat dusk before you get in there, and that was fun. And I ended up getting mine the next morning, and you got yours later that day.
Yeah.
But it is, like I said, when you're doing something like that, and forget the kill.
Yeah.
To put that aside for a second, I'm going to come back to that because I think that's important too. But there is the best way I've seen it put, and I put this on an Instagram, and I didn't put, I didn't know how, but I put this, there's a provider's instinct that we have in us, I believe, as men and women, that is a reason why that is so enjoyable to do. There's and never mind the primal connection to the food we eat.
Yeah, right.
Which there's that too. But that it's almost honorable about securing your own sustenance.
Yeah.
And that's putting aside the actual stalk and hunt, which I also feel is in us, and the other thing we've said this before too, but the hunters that I've come across and the guys that I know that hunt are the most respectful caretakers of anybody about nature and how the rules work. And nobody's putting sunglasses on the elk after there's a, you know what I mean? There's a reverence.
We get Bernie's photos.
Yeah. There's a reverence and there's a thankfulness and there's kind of a ritualistic approach to and I didn't big game hunt my whole life. We always bird hunted and whatnot, but never, this came later in life, but my gosh. And like we've said before, and this is also something that I think is in us is the preparation for the hunt.
Oh yeah.
And there's just that, I love stuff that you feel this natural, curiosity inside yourself, but you're also feeling satisfaction as you're preparing, and it feels instinctual. It feels like you're stroking something internally that we were born to do.
Oh, absolutely. But that's funny because when you go to people ask the question about God creating humanity and in the garden, Adam and Eve, and how God wired us. I think hunting, and not if you're not into hunting, that's fine too. So this isn't trying to convince everybody you got to be some hunter. But I think the pursuit and the chase is in all of us.
Yep.
And the challenge of it, the competitiveness of it. But, I think there's so many parables and like metaphors in the hunting analogy, the preparation. It's like before we even left, hey, you run to Cabela's. Yeah, I got to go over there too. Hey, we got to make sure we got this ammo. We got to make sure we got that. And, being prepared.
And the adrenaline that morning
of
getting on your, getting prepared, boots and everything in your backpack and getting prepared to go out. And,
No, I know waking up in the morning, we set the alarm and we're getting up, it's dark out, and there's this expectation for the day. And then we jump in and we're hiking up. You get out there and you're tuning your senses into it. That's the thing that I thought was very interesting is because I parallel this to faith, and the Bible talks about how God pursues us, but what He wants in response is us to pursue Him. I mean, that's why we call this vertical pursuit. I mean, it's pursuing God, right? Because He pursued us first. He loved us first, so we could love Him. Bible talks about if you seek Him, you'll find Him. But what my thing that was cool was you and we pull up and we're like, okay, now we know they're over here. We got to make a stalk. And we got to check our windage, making sure we don't wind them, make sure they don't smell us. We got to make sure that we're quiet, make sure that we're, not, in a visible place. We're sneaking up behind sagebrush and junipers and belly crawling at some points to try to get a better vantage point and just step by step. And I was like, a lot of faith is like that. And it's like you tune your senses, like your eyes, and even your smelling. Remember, we were like, hey, I think we smell it. And
you can smell elk.
You can smell elk, and you can see them, and you're listening, like, oh, there's one over there now, and not just the ones we're looking at. Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
We're like, oh, snap.
What was when you blew your cow call? We heard somebody else in some brush ruffling, and I don't know if it was a cat or a bear or what it was.
Yeah. We both were like, what is that? And it was somewhere where we couldn't see them, but we definitely heard the response to the call. And I was kind of thinking, God invites us to, and then the thrill of just sitting there watching them and finding them and the majesty of that, the majesticness of these huge antlers and the silhouette as they are standing up, with the dawn of the sun going down. I mean, all those things, you capture that moment and you go, gosh, that's a lot like our relationship with God,
And the thing that I relate that to when I'm out there, and you don't have to hunt to get this, you can hike and get this, but nature, I think, in those situations, because there's even though it really isn't, but there's a sense of danger, I guess, but nature reminds us that we're not in control. And you don't feel that when you're, driving to Costco. I mean, I don't anyway, but I feel it when I'm doing that.
Absolutely.
And also that nature can outsmart you. And that's the part you're talking about with the stalk. And that's the competitive part of it. But I also feel like that's instinctual in us when we're on a hunt, where it's kind of mano a mano. But but you're tracking and again, you can do this if you're a photographer and you're trying to get as close as you can to a bald eagle, whatever. I'm not saying you have to be trying to, hunt whatever you're after, but there is that feeling that I think that you only get in those situations. At least that's how I feel. Yeah. And coming from a sports background, yes, there's some competitive parts of it, and the satisfaction of, as I mentioned, filling your freezer and providing for your family and getting good, healthy, the most organic grass-fed meat you can get, and knowing that you have taken care of your family, that provider's instinct I talked about, that comes from this stuff that it can't be replicated in any other walk of life.
And then there's to me, the camaraderie of community, because you and I, and then even the other guys that are with us, we're all hunting in small groups, 2 or 3 guys, and there's something about that. And there's something about how, one guy would get his elk down, and you're not done though. Now your goal is to help your buddy get one. And so he plays a part. It's a teamwork. So he's like, hey, I'm going to go up to this ridge, and I'm going to glass and use binoculars and scopes, and I'm going to look over there. But I'm looking for you so that you can increase. So it's a team effort, everybody working together for that, so that when an elk goes down and we're in the cow barn and we're skinning it out, music's playing, drinks in hand, there's just this accomplishment together, and boy to each other. And, it's just, you can do that by yourself. It's not the same. Yeah. It's not even close to being the same.
And it's weird being out there. I'm always reminded when we're out there, there's that one, there's a bunch of old structures, but there's one old 1850s tiny little cabin out there in a weird place that we always see it on the side of this hill. The last few years when we've hunted that meadow that we hunted the first night. And I always think of those people back then and how difficult, obviously, life was. But the fact they're not hunting for the same reasons we're hunting now. Right. I mean, maybe a little bit, but having to survive and truly provide for your family, whereas if you don't come back successful for a while, you're not eating.
Yeah.
So I always think about that when I'm out there.
Yeah, like if we came home and we didn't get anything down, I'm zipping down to Costco to buy some ribs and a brisket.
Right.
And back those guys, that was it.
Right.
That was it.
I always think about that when I'm out there. And just, obviously we have state-of-the-art equipment now and scopes, and it's so rangefinders, but I often wonder when I'm there. I like history too, but just wondering how they did it, and the hard people it took to survive life back then, and given some of the cemeteries around there, and some of the things that you can see, the headstones from back in that day, it's tough surviving.
Yeah,
tough to survive it.
Yeah.
What? Not to completely shift gears, but it also gave me a chance, which it does, and and you can do this again if you're hiking or whatever, or fishing or whatever, but it gives you time to think, and it slows the world down. You get away from technology and you concentrate on what you're doing, but it gives, where does your mind go when you are in a situation like that in terms of, and I'm setting this up because I find that when I'm in a situation like that, when I'm trying to slow life down and I'm trying to, I start to get in my mind things in my head that I think will make me happy, things that dominate my thoughts. And on this particular trip, I was disappointed in myself because most of my thoughts were on several businesses and several deals and things that I'm up to now. And I'm realizing, and for some reason, somebody brought this up out there. I didn't even tell anybody. But when I came back, I thought, I'd never really thought of a thought or a dominant thought in my mind being an idol. And we've mentioned idols before on the podcast, but I want to go to idols as it relates to where is your allegiance and where should it be in terms of discerning if there are idols in your life or if there are things that are becoming idols, and ways to discover an idol that's hidden in the corner of your heart is to observe where your thoughts go by default. Now, and the way I'm trying to set that up is saying default for me is when things slow down. Now that can be when I'm driving in the car, when I'm, doing whatever, standing in the shower, whatever. What consumes or preoccupies much of your thinking when the distractions are turned down? So what is that goal? What is that dream? What is that outcome that is always in the back of your mind? You can focus on, which is good, your family, your own spiritual condition. You can focus on, recent sin. But I think that my main point in this, and what I was I drove back by myself and I was just thinking, and I wasn't beating myself up, but I was thinking when I'm out in literally God's country and I'm around some strong Christian men and we had some conversation, not as much as we normally do, but when anything consumes too much of your thinking and it's out of place, it's taking the place of the Lord, even if it feels and seems to be spiritual. Yeah. Does that make any sense?
It does. No,
because I've never thought of the idolatry thing as being thoughts or goals or dreams. I know. But it kind of is.
It is. I like how you said that. I was just sitting here listening because I've heard a lot of people break down big, long theological dictionaries of idols and that. And I think most people today, when we hear idols, I'm like, I don't got an idol. Like, are you talking about some little like gold Buddha that I rub his belly in my corner of my living room? I was like, are you talking about that? Like, I don't got one of those. What are you talking about? And I think the idols it's not just about the shiny little weird religious spiritual object that people rub and hope it brings them good luck. That the first time the word idol was ever used in the Bible was around the 10 Commandments. And God's like, don't have any of these idols beside me. And of course, we read these stories in the Old Testament where they did. They made like big golden statues, and that's where we get our idea of idols. I'm like, I don't got one of those. But it's what you said, it's the thoughts that go into it. So like, for instance, the first time idol was ever used, God shows up. Israel was in captivity. They're slaves to the Egyptians. And God's like, hey, here's the deal. I've not given up on you. I see your situation. I don't want you to be in slavery. I actually want you to be in this place called the Promised Land. And the Promised Land was this place of abundance. It's like, oh my gosh, like life is thriving and flourishing. And God says, I'm going to deliver you from slavery to the Promised Land where you can flourish and you can experience life that the way God wants you, intended for you to do that. The problem was this. There was a path, a journey between slavery and flourishing. And this is where we all get jacked up. And this is where idols come in. So as they leave slavery, as they leave Egypt, God says, hey, trust me. Just trust me. He kept saying that. Trust me, trust me, trust me, trust me. I'm going to lead you to a place. And along the way, I'm going to provide for you. And then immediately what happens is the first time they get stuck and they get afraid, they start questioning God. They start going, well, God, they complain, why'd you lead us out here? We're going to go back to slavery. And God's like, listen, trust me. Just trust me. I'm going to provide everything you need on the journey to this promised land. And they didn't trust him. And God over and over and over again. So it finally gets to a point where God says, hey, Moses, who was leading the people, he says, Moses, come here. We're going to meet up, have a private meeting up on the mountain. God pulls Moses up there. He gives him the 10 Commandments. And the 10 Commandments were not meant to be rules that God wants to bust over our head. They were meant to be guardrails so that we could live a flourishing life and keep us from wandering in a place of danger. That's why God gave the 10 Commandments. The best way I tell people, imagine if you love your kids so much and you tell your kids, I want you to play in the backyard. I built this backyard. I got a fort. I've got this over here. I put up a pool for you, but I'm going to put up a fence because I know you. And if there's not a fence, you'll probably look down the road and you'll look over there and you're not smart enough yet to know consequences. And you're going to wander and then you're going to get injured. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get hit by a car. And so because you love your kids so much, you put up a fence. The 10 Commandments was God's way of putting up a fence and a guardrail to protect us, not to beat us over the head with that. So when God says, don't have another gods, don't worship idols, don't kill, don't murder, don't steal, don't all the 10 Commandments, it was meant to bless us in a way where we go, gosh, God, you love us so much. So when he says, don't have idols, an idol is any thought. It's anything where I begin to not trust God and I trust something else. That's at the root issue. It's when people take a thought, an idea, a hope, an aspiration, and we make it more important than who God is. I heard one amazing scholar. He said it this way: that idolatry is when we make good things ultimate things, and you can even take a good thing and make it more important than God, and you begin to find your identity in the wrong thing, and it can be a good thing like business success. Gosh, man, God wants you successful business? Absolutely, nothing wrong with that. But if you begin to find your identity in that, not in who God says we are, then I've made the success of my business an idol, not a blessing. And what's the difference between something like that being a blessing or an idol? It's if I put my hope in it, if I put my identity in it. Now it's become an idol because now it controls me because now I'm a slave to it. Because what happens now if you're not successful and your identity's in that, you're going to start feeling insecure and so forth. So now it begins to have a hold on you. It drives you. Success becomes a master. You're not the master of it. And that's why idols will always hold you in captivity when God wants to lead us to a place of freedom and flourishing and thriving.
So the obvious one there, it probably is the main one, and there's a reason why it's talked about a lot in the Bible, is money.
Money,
correct?
Absolutely.
Is that probably, in your mind, the chief idol that drives a wedge between people and their spiritual life and walk? Yeah.
It can't. I think it's a symptom.
Attention-wise, I guess, or where you're placing your hope.
That's it. Because for a lot of people, money, I've rarely met truly greedy people. I mean, greedy people are, you think of Scrooge and, we all probably have some level of greed in us, but it's rare you'll find a greedy, absolute kind of that type of person until you start talking about corruption and you can go to that extreme. I'm talking like your average person. What money does is it promises something it can't deliver. Now, money's great. Don't get me wrong. Can money solve your woes right now? Heck yeah. You got medical bills and somebody writes you a check for $100,000. Are you going to feel happy and joy about that? Heck yeah. Like that's going to feel good.
I'm guilty of it, thinking that it's going to bring me peace.
That's the thing. It's like, it's fleeting. It's fleeting. It's like, yes, it's momentarily. Yes, it's good. But ultimately it doesn't lead you to peace. It doesn't lead you to sustainable joy, because I know people who will buy something because they can afford it. And talking to a guy the other day, and I was like, wow. He's like, yeah, I can buy something. It was very extravagant. Very extravagant car. And he's like, just because I can, I'm going to go buy it because I can do that stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. I'd love to be able to just drop $100,000 on a car just because it's a whim.
Yeah.
But I go, if you start chasing those things, it's like a drug. And there is that endorphin. There is that like, yeah, it feels good. But then about a week later, you're kind of going, I got the car and it fades out. What's next? And then you got to hit that next hit. And that's why, again, it's like, yeah, you can have stuff and money's a means to an end. I think a lot of people find money as, this is what I think. I think majority of people, it's not greed. It's a sense of security. That's where I need money as a sense. It's like, that's the safety net,
But is it also how they measure themselves in terms of success?
100%.
You know what I mean? Not necessarily in what it can buy you, but you feel like, Maybe you're trying to prove something to yourself. And I think even at the point of my life, having to reinvent after a major job shift, I fall victim to that.
Oh, totally.
Where I think if I have some measure of money, or if I have something that happens and is successful, and it's not because I have nice things, but I don't live a real extravagant life, and I don't spend a lot of money. So it's not for that reason.
Right.
I think it's more to satisfy some weird, and that's where that's why I'm talking about this, because I think that I think it's not a healthy drive to have that drive. And I know we're all guilty of it, because that's why I'm talking about this, because I feel that in myself, that I feel like if that's going to solve some inner lacking in myself on what I think I should be.
Oh, totally.
Therefore, is it an idol? That's why I brought this up.
Absolutely. I think anything that defines us more than God. And so success, money is a connection to success.
You're right.
And so if I measure success by money, it's an idol. I mean, we did another podcast on this where we talked about the difference between success and significance. And I tell this when we do Blazer Chapels with the players. I say, listen, you can either be about success or significance. It's not wrong to be successful. It's just better to be significant. And by significance, I mean, how do you measure your life? Do you measure your life by how am I making a difference in somebody else's life? How am I living for God? How am I looking outside of my own world and my own whatever I want for me, and to make somebody else's life better? That's significance. Success, yeah. How many awards do you want? How much money? When's enough in the bank account? When's enough? You know,
it's never enough.
It's never enough,
right?
No, it's never enough. When you get to this goal, you're like, oh yeah, once I get there, I can rest, and then you get there, and you're like, no, I just more. So, I think if money is your ultimate definition of success, it is an idol. It'll enslave you.
And I also think, and this again, I don't want to just dissect this to the point where it becomes irritating, but seriously, for me, when talking about your allegiance, which is what I said a while ago, and how it relates to idolatry, I think for me, I think a good exercise in this can be thinking about your habits and your routine. I mentioned also a minute ago about starting to observe where your thoughts go by default or in idle time. And like for me, I usually do that, and I do pray when I go to bed. Obviously, when I lay down, usually, and it doesn't take me. I'm not like you. You can fall asleep really fast, like you did in my truck the other day.
I did too.
But it takes me a while. So during that time is when I usually, and I have a good imagination, so I'll start to imagine and it can be silly things, and not to an unhealthy degree, but like a hunting trip, or if I were to design like my dream cabin somewhere, what it would look like, what I would do to it, how I would decorate it. And I do that because it kind of puts me to sleep. Those thoughts are always fun for me. But then I start to think about things like habits and things like routine, and what idols do I have in there? Are there things that I need to have during the day, such as at night? You know, a lot of times when I grill a lot, and one habit I have is when I fire the grill up, I crack a beer if it's 6 o'clock.
Great.
And I sit on my counter in the backyard and I look at the clouds.
Yeah.
For me, that's just but it becomes kind of something that is, and I'm not I have a beer, but I'm not, but when I do that, I notice that, you ever notice something about yourself? Like when you do something, something accompanies it, and you start to realize it's kind of a habit or a routine. And I wonder how many of those we could break if we had to, because are they starting to fall into that? I'm not trying to make people feel guilty or myself, but what starts to fall into something that is idolatry? And to take it another step further, another thing I was thinking about was, are there certain people's approval that you are seeking?
Wow.
Is there a group of people that you want to be part of and accepted by, no matter the cost? And how important to you are the ways you do things? And what things do you seek to control always, or fix, or make better? And these are just simple questions I think we should begin to ask ourselves on this subject. I know it sucks. I'm sorry. When it comes to the subject of allegiance and idolatry, and maybe I'm overthinking the idolatry thing, but I don't think so.
No.
Unfortunately.
No. There's a story in the Old Testament of a kid. It's a kid who became a king, one of the youngest kings. His name was Josiah. And King Josiah, I mean, he was probably 13 or 14 years old when this happened, like young. But what happened was Israel had just been littered with idols everywhere. I mean, they abandoned God. They didn't put their hope in God. They didn't find their peace in God. They didn't find their joy in God. They turned to all these idols, and they were just filled everywhere. And they even brought them into the temple, all these idols to all these pagan gods. And Josiah becomes king, and the first thing he does says, we're purging all these idols. And he cleans house, and he just tears them all down. And the Bible talks about a lot of these idols got put on what was called a high place. And we don't, this is not part of our daily routine. And so, but a high place represented, they would elevate the idol on a platform somewhere, and they were symbolically putting it on a high place to establish its priority of worship in their life. And so the question that we have every day is, where are the high places in my life? What are the high places? What does that mean? It means this: when I look at anything in my life, have I elevated something that I've given my allegiance to, that I'm metaphorically bowing down to, I'm worshiping, I'm putting my hope in it, trust in it, my identity in it? So you just said probably one of the biggest high places are relationships. Is there someone I'm so desperately trying to please that I'm more about pleasing them than pleasing God? To the point where I might even compromise.
That's no matter the cost.
No matter the cost, that's a high place. I have a friend that we asked that question, Brian Stubbs, shout out to him, but you and I have a good friend. We've had this conversation.
Stubbs was with me when I shot my elk.
Exactly. We'll have him on the podcast.
Absolutely.
Man, he's got crazy
That dude's
stories.
got stories.
Oh my gosh.
He's a bush pilot,
Yeah,
missionary.
seriously.
He's seen some things.
Oh my gosh. He's got the best stories. But yeah, it's just that question of, is there high places? And do I need to purge them? You know, do I need to look like King Josiah and go, in the temple of my life, you know, the places where, you know, my heart, if you will, my mind, my thoughts, my priorities, my goals, my dreams, my ambitions, all those things, are any of those littered with high places of idols? And I think relationships are one of the high places, can be, if we elevate somebody else. It could be someone close to you. It could even be a spouse. It could be a kid. I know of parents who, they want the approval so bad of their son or daughter, which I understand that. You know, we want their love, but not to the point where you compromise your faith. And then, and I get it, it's hard, but then what ends up happening is you've made that child, that kid, that relationship an idol.
And you may not be leaning into this, but youth sports comes to mind.
Exactly.
In a big time
Oh,
way.
absolutely.
And this is not to say you shouldn't be doing that, but probably that's one of those things to put on the list.
If we want to go there, we can go there, because that is, I mean, you and I are huge sports guys. So this is not, you know, anti-sports people here. We grew up, it's a big part of our life and still part of our life. But in saying that, that's probably why we're so familiar with it, because we're in it. And you see this today. And, you know, there was always parents that were showing up at games and loud and getting thrown out of games, and like, because they were competitive and they were cheering on. But now it's so bad. What I see are parents who are so desperate for their approval that they want their kid to be successful because it makes them look successful. And so in a weird sort of way, you're kind of exploiting your kid, pushing them to be successful, because it really is about you looking good, because you want the approval of the other parents. And so that's an idol at the expense. And this is why you have kids who are burning out. You have kids who, some, not all, but you have kids going, gosh, I don't even want to play this sport anymore. My parents made me hate this. They're driving me, and I got to show up at all this stuff, because if I don't make the team, and we know today, it used to be multi-sports throughout the year. Now it's like, well, if you don't play on these AAU teams, you don't get on these select teams, you're not going to get to this, you're not going to get to this. And parents not all, can be driving that. And really behind the layers is the parents want to be seen a certain way.
Well, we talked about this a little bit with Matt in our last episode,
Mm-hmm.
because Matt's a varsity basketball coach, and of course my dad was, so I grew up with it. But I remember having that conversation with my son. He decided we're not going to be his thing. But he was in the sports in grade school. But I remember being in third grade, and I was helping coach his baseball team, and he wasn't necessarily trying that hard, but it wasn't because he didn't have discipline. He just didn't enjoy it. And I remember finally, after I think his third grade year, I kind of grabbed him by the shoulders. I think it may be his last game. And I said, are you doing this for me or for you?
Wow.
Because I don't feel like you're enjoying yourself. Wow. And I said, you don't have to do this. And he goes, okay, I don't think I want to anymore. And so, he was pretty quick with it, and he's very careful, huge heart, doesn't want to let me down. So I said in my own head, if he's saying it that quick without me really having to coax it out of him, he didn't want to do this. Yeah. And so then I had to check myself, because, long-time baseball, I went to college for that, and but it didn't dominate my life. I don't think it even did then necessarily. But and I'm not like some, far from it, perfect parent. In that case, though, I could see it in his eyes. And I just kind of said, are you wanting to step out of this? And I wanted him to be happy. And I could sense, would he have gone and continued to do it if I'd have pushed him? Probably. And maybe that was early to have that discussion, because he was out, third grade. He probably isn't in a position yet to have experienced a whole lot in the sports realm. But I could just sense it was time to have that talk. And quite frankly, maybe it was better. I had a dad who was a successful coach, wonderful coach, like Matt. That's why I like Matt so much and respect him, because in our last episode, Matt talked about the things that define success for him. And I've watched, as I said to him, I've watched his games, watched how he controls himself on the court, how he, models behavior to his players, and how you can see for him, you want to win, you want to be successful, but not to that at any cost point. And I could see that in him. But I had a dad, and my dad and I, wonderful. My dad passed away about 4 years ago, and we got close later in life. But that was not easy, having a dad as a coach. And I think part of it is I was hearing a lot of times about all these guys I knew, and a little older, because that's when I was here. And he was doing his best to set examples that he wanted me to follow. But I do think maybe for a coach like that, it becomes a challenge. The idolatry thing and the allegiance thing becomes a challenge. Oh, wow. And there were a lot of times as a kid, I didn't feel like necessarily a top priority, even though I'm sure I was. But I think that's why I'm explaining why I think I came to that point with my own son so early and so fast, because that was hard for me as a kid. Wow.
But that's so great that you were able to do that so young with him, and not at a point where it was too late.
Yeah.
And then it's like, now you're trying to repair all of that. And the fact that you did that for him, and for him to know that your approval for him wasn't in that. That's so huge for their identity, the relationship.
Well, and keep in mind, then I was the TV play-by-play guy of the Trailblazers.
Oh, yeah.
So
all the pressure's on. I got to be
Dad, so I could
Mike
see
Barrett,
in his mind him saying the guys he admires put a ball through a hoop.
Exactly.
So I got to be that guy, because that's kind of how I felt as a kid.
Oh yeah.
And so that was, in terms of idolatry, I saw that when and maybe not correctly, those are the people my dad loves.
Yep. Exactly.
Those are the people my dad, and if I'm not that,
yep,
then he's not going to love me as completely as maybe he should. Wow. And you don't have to have a dad as a coach to have gone through this. but it's really is funny sitting here right now. I don't think I have ever thought of that moment. I don't know why it came up. My discussion with my son after that baseball game. I'm sitting here on the psychiatrist's couch again. I think that's probably why, thinking about it, I probably had that conversation with him because it was so rough for me and I wanted to steer him away from that, and I could sense it coming.
Isn't that true, though? Like, none of us grew up with perfect dads, some better than others, some worse than others. We know that. But you had a great dad, and I had a good dad. But we're shaped by their good things. But then even the parts where, you know, something like that, where you're like, okay, my dad meant well and all of that, but, you know, I want to make sure Jack grows up not feeling his love from you is conditioned on him meeting up to some expectation as an athlete and all that. And how amazing, though, that you were in third grade while all that's still being formed in him and his identity, that you didn't have, at least that's one big layer that wasn't there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. But I thought about that because you started talking about kids in sports. And for me, it wasn't. My daughter, who is now a senior, you know, she still plays sports and always have, but it was always different. I never felt that rub, maybe because I couldn't identify it to my dad and I. Yeah. So it's never been any remotely that kind of an issue. And I don't think she's had those same feelings about it. She still enjoys it. So I'm like, go. But we've never had those discussions, but I think that came from, as a lot of things do, in terms of how we're shaped as parents, came from things in our own childhood.
Oh, absolutely. For good or for bad.
Yeah, right.
All of those things.
Yeah, no, good too.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I had a wonderful dad.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things that I don't think we probably, with my dad, we didn't communicate extremely well. And not everybody does. It's a tough thing to do, especially because in a lot of cases, as I've said to people before, and I've tried to encourage young parents, there's no book on this kid. You're going to write this book as you go. And yes, you can observe people who have modeled what it's like to be a good parent around you as you go. But there's not a specific, and that's funny. I got told that by a nurse one time, or my wife and I did, when Jack, my son, was a baby, and there was a lactation coach, a nurse who would come and try to show
help you figure it out,
how to nurse. Yeah. And I remember Shelly was getting.
Did it help you personally? I'm joking.
Yeah, it did very much so. No, we were trying to, you need to be coached, and because you think, some of this stuff is instinctual, but it was one of those lines that stood out to me, probably because I like dialogue, because I like to write. But when she said to me, when we were like, well, is it supposed to be this? Because our friends, they say this. And she said, hey, the book on him has not been written yet.
Oh, wow.
And I went, wow. And I don't think she probably remembers that she said that. And I went, well, that really stuck with me. In other words, far as expectations go.
Yeah.
And trying to follow and land in some certain category, which again is probably some form of idolatry. But that was a huge help at that age to be able to realize that. And I think with my own son and my own daughter, I've tried to keep that in mind.
What do you think for you, jumping out of that, like that statement, the book hasn't been written on it, like that was very freeing then for you guys.
Huge.
Like to go, okay, take a deep breath. We're not trying to compare and be somebody else. And I wonder if that comparison becomes an idol.
Huge. Absolutely. I mentioned that a minute ago, that people seeking people's approval.
Yeah.
Or even a group of people that you are trying to be accepted by.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I'm totally guilty of that. Probably even to this day. And then I didn't growing up, and you didn't either. We didn't have the added pressure of social media and whatnot, which in itself is an idol in terms of you do a post, a picture of something on Instagram, and man, that only got 20 likes. What did I do wrong? I mean, was it the time of day? Was the subject matter not right? So you're seeking approval all of the time with that. And that, as you just said, I agree. That could be one of the biggest, most obvious idols that we don't address.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, when I look at my biggest insecurities, it's probably connected to an idol. If I look at my life, because I'm out of those insecurities, I'm usually going to compare. I'm usually going to go, okay, I'm not good at this. Why do you say that? Well, because you're comparing it to somebody else. And those are sometimes unrealistic. But what I can do is before you know it, I get so obsessed with that comparison that I'll put something or someone on a pedestal and I'll go, gosh, I got to be like that. I got not from a place of inspiration. That's good. That's healthy. But from a place of like idolatry where I am now that what they represent becomes in my mind when I get there, then I'll have value.
Absolutely.
Then I'll have worth. Then I'll have significance. What I've done though is I have that even the image of what that represents of success controls me. Therefore, it's an idol in my life versus if I find my value, worth, and success or significance out of God, that's where it should go. But anytime I replace him with something else, that's an idol. That's an idol, no matter what. If it's money, security, relationships, identity, all that kind of stuff. Affirmation.
Sermon.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't you think that's probably a spot where pastors fall into traps?
Absolutely. You give a sermon, people don't realize this, but when you give a sermon, it's one of the most vulnerable places to be. And because you've put your heart and soul into something, you've studied it, and then you go and you share it, and when you put it out there and people are listening to it, there's a part of you going, how did that land? You know, and that's good because we do feedback, and so there's a place for that. We'll do it when we preach sermons. We encourage anybody who does a sermon after the first one, go ask for some feedback from the other staff. Hey, did I miss something? Did that sound clear? Not from a place of I'm trying to reach for applause and I'm reaching for
affirmation.
Praise me. That's unhealthy. And people do that subtly.
But you're human. You're gonna want that.
You're gonna want that.
And that's the reason why you and I relate on this, because I had the same thing.
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
Because I would broadcast an NBA game, and if it was a big game, late in the season, playoff game or whatever, and it's over, and then you get lit up by people. It's like, oh yeah, really?
Oh, totally.
And so I think, why am I doing this for approval?
Exactly.
But in some ways, yeah. And back in the day, I'm envious of the guys who came before me because they didn't have to deal with getting on the team bus after a game in Oklahoma City and flipping on Twitter at the time and to check and see how things came across. But we all do it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure with a pastor, it's why you can relate to this.
Absolutely.
And yours on a much deeper level.
Yeah. Well, and you do hear from time to time, some more than others, the bad stuff. People will tell you things and they let you have it. Why you're wrong and why they disagree, and that's fine. It just goes with the territory. But even when you live with that, you then start fishing.
Yep.
And that's we all do it, but that's a dangerous place. When you start fishing for compliments, approvals, that's when you kind of go,
dudes,
shoot.
It's obvious when you're fishing.
Oh gosh.
And I'm saying that because I'm guilty too.
Yep. I would tell people there was a thing where growing up, and this was good, but it became bad. When I grew up in church, and a lot of churches do this, particularly smaller churches, country type, community feeling churches, the pastor, when he's done, will be at the door as people are leaving.
Yeah.
To say, hey, have a great week. God bless you, blah, blah, blah.
Do you like me?
That's what I think. I think it's turned into that for most. If they're honest, you're not really standing at the door at the end. Stand at the door before.
You want some attaboys.
Exactly. Oh, well, great. It's like, no. Oftentimes for me, you won't see me a few minutes after the service.
I know.
I will kind of make my way.
I know where to find you, but I know that most people don't.
Yeah. Because I just go, you know what? I don't need to go out there. I don't need to do that. I'll greet you as much as before the service starts, even during the service. But I'm not going to stand at the door as everybody goes out. And you can kind of see insecure preachers do that. I've seen it where they're starting off and you can tell they're out in the lobby and they're kind of looking for that, and it's just, that's fine. It's insecurity. But all that to say, we could all be fishing somewhere for our approval. And that's usually a tell, if you will, of, is something becoming an idol? I mean, even if I need my wife's approval on everything, then I can elevate her over, or a spouse, or like I said earlier, a child or a boss. If they have that much control over my value, worth, my identity, that's an idol.
So something's off.
Yeah.
So then, and I know we always get to this point, it seems like at about this same time when we've talked about something like this, I have some simple thoughts on, because this comes to one of those points is where I think people who are listening, and I even do this too, okay, we get it, we agree. How do I fix it?
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to come up, I want to give you my own fix, which is a really obvious one, but then I want to ask you, how do I even do that? So the things what we should do, and we know this, we bring these things before the Lord, and we make a list if necessary, and we ask him what we need to lay down and leave behind so that we can pick up our cross and follow Jesus, fully devoted to him and to his will for us. Okay, so that's a really neat Hallmark card and thing to say and thing to post on Instagram to get some likes. How do you do that? And how do you do that in terms of the things we're talking about? And you just said this as far as giving sermons, and how do you keep that from becoming an idol, and everything else in your life, including money, toys, new guns, great camo gear. I'm looking around your room. How do you do that? And what do you take captive in order to keep those idols at bay?
Yeah. I know this, it's hard. See, it's like, yeah, we can sit here all day long and say, you got to get rid of idols. And I would say this is what I think the chief motivator in this is. One, can you even tell something's an idol, or is it a blessing? There's a difference between the two. Is it wrong to have things? No, it's not wrong to be blessed with things. It's not wrong to have key relationships. It's not wrong when someone pays you a compliment. But if I'm driven by, you know it. You know if you are seeking it. Why do you know it? Because when it doesn't happen or you don't have it, you don't have peace. And that's usually an indicator. So I think the first thing is, how do I tell the difference between a blessing and an idol? Does it control me? Does it drive me? If it's not happening, am I restless? Am I not peaceful? That's probably an idol. You've given allegiance to it. Two, then, is you have to actually, I think personally, for me, it's a matter of what am I putting my trust in? And so every day, actually, this will help you. Purging out idols doesn't mean you get rid of the idol. You have to replace it with God again.
How do you actively
do that? So then what that means is, let's just say this. Let's make it so brass tacks. Let's say money's an idol for you. And you're like, okay, I got to purge that. Does that mean I wipe out my bank account? No, that's not what I'm saying. Start every day by setting your mind and heart, praising God, being grateful for him. What's happening is you have to shift your side. You have to shift your being for your behavior. So I'm going to start every day grateful. God, I'm going to make a list of all the things I'm grateful in. I'm going to praise you, God. I'm going to thank you. I'm going to worship you. If it's money, it's like, God, today I'm going to start before I check. Listen, this is real practical. Before I check my stock and how that's doing, before I check my bank account, before I do any of those things, which can be a symptom of an idol, because I'm anxious about that. So it's like, God, today, before I check those things, you first. God, you're first. I praise you. I thank you. God, you have to go through that internal motion of setting your mind and your heart on the right place. And then when you do that, it's amazing how when you're consistently in the discipline of every day, every morning, every night, God, I just thank you. God, I just want to praise you for who you made me and what you've done in my life and all those sort of things. Just that gratefulness, that praising God, it's reshifting your center. It's getting you back to a place where all of a sudden you're going, subtly over time, my mind's not even preoccupied with those other things as much anymore. It's like, I'm not obsessed with those things anymore. Now it's a healthy habit or a healthy hobby. It's not an obsession. It's not a measurement of anything in my success or identity or security. And I think that it always starts with that inner peace with God, and then it works its way out to alignment and purging of those idols.
And I see people who I don't want to say have it solved, but people that I envy because they have a really good balance in that. I notice them
totally.
and usually it's somebody I can see who's even keeled.
Yeah.
And if something bad happens, they go, it's okay. And there are people who have easier to do that than others at times, especially when it comes to like business success and failure, because there's at times you're wanting to be a provider, and if you feel like that is your role, then you are going to grip a little harder on stuff like that. But it is possible, I think, to make progress in this.
Absolutely. I think another practical step. So that's the first one. I think the next one, this is more severe, but if you want to get down to it, purging idols, because again, if you don't count the cost, you'll never take this serious. I think a lot of us are like, listen, I can have an idol and worship God at the same time. And most of us try to live that sort of, on one hand, I worship God. On the other hand, I have an idol in my life. You can't. It's just, you'll never live the life God wanted you, where it's full of peace and rest. The promised land was not meant to be some location. It's a state of being with God. That's the promised land. It's a place of thriving, flourishing, peace and joy and hope and rest and all of that. That's the promised land. Idols rob us of that, keeps us in bondage to fear, anxiety, worry, all those sort of things. So it's massively at stake whether you purge idols or not. You don't entertain them. You don't try to appease them and compromise them and justify them. It's only going to destroy and rob you from the inside. So once you take it serious enough to go, I don't want these idols, now you'll get to a point where you go, purging them may mean I have to do a couple things. Number one, take a fast or withhold yourself. So for instance, if sports is an idol to you, can you go a week without watching ESPN? Can you go a week without, take a week, and you'll know really quick how much your allegiance is to anything.
So actively deny yourself.
Exactly. And this is the take up the cross stuff, where you deny yourself. Denying yourself that pleasure, denying yourself that gratification, denying yourself that, because what it does is it's really showing, is this a blessing or an idol? Sports can be great, absolutely. It can be an idol. It's the same thing with anything. Money, for instance, if money is an idol and you want to test it, give some away. That'll really test if it's an idol or not.
Yeah, for sure.
You're like, whoa, wait a minute. I'll give you an example. I'll give a straight up example. I love, gear and stuff like this. And I don't spend a lot of money on that because I don't have a lot for that. But I'll save up and I'll, buy something here and there. And I buy a new rifle or a pistol. And, I got to save up several months to do that. But I remember last year I had my eyes on a vintage Ruger Black Hawk pistol. And I was just like, oh man, that'd be so cool. Just this, and it wasn't that expensive. It's like $350.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought it because I was looking, but I found myself really obsessed for like about a month. Like all I was doing was thinking about it, researching it, and I found one and I bought it. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can have 10, 20 of those. Like that, again, having stuff is not the problem. When the Bible says, talking about money, it doesn't say money is evil. It says money is the root of evil. So if you allow money to start getting roots,
the love of money,
all of a sudden that's an issue. So for me, I started just going, is this an idol? And a thought came into my head, give it away. Give it away. Give it to somebody else as a blessing, as a gift, someone else that would enjoy it. Give it away. And that thought came into my head and I wrestled with it. I'm like, no,
I don't want to give this.
I'm not giving this away. I have to spend a month. Look at, I'm like polishing this thing, and shoot, I'm polishing an idol. Because if I'm so attached to my allegiance, like you said, am I so attached to this thing that if God said, bless somebody else with it, it's an idol? Because again, God may not ask you to give anything away, but do I hold everything in such a way where if he does, I can? Or am I just grabbing a hold of that? And so I gave it away. I gave it to a guy, and we did the transfer just so all those listening on there. It's legal. So I don't get any, whatever. But I blessed somebody with it and said, hey, I just felt led to give this to you. And he was like, thanks so much, whatever. And I found this joy. There was a joy actually in blessing somebody, and you were such a gift giver. And I've been on the receiving end. The Bible talks about it's more blessed and joyful to give than to receive. And you've done that so many times. I had two joys. There was a joy of just blessing somebody else and making their day, because I'd heard they were going through some stuff and I wanted to encourage them. There was a joy of going, gosh, I'm not tied to that idol.
That's huge.
The assurance of, okay, man, that felt so relieved that, okay, thanks God. That was hard because it was a sacrifice.
It's a good test.
But it was a good test.
That's really good. That's really powerful. I like that. And that took discipline, especially because I think a lot of us can fake our way through that, and you didn't really want it that bad. But if you really did, and you still were able to do that,
exactly,
work that hard and then give that away,
yep,
that's a nice check. That shows really good discipline.
Yeah.
It's a tough topic because I think we all struggle with this. Because as I talked about, and it's funny how you can kind of connect these things, we started talking about hunting and instinct and what's inside of us and how it satisfies to do these, this routine of hunting or this tradition, all these things we talk about. But then I think, well, that's kind of what we're talking about now when it comes to this kind of stuff, as far as what is routine and all those things. Are they, because I'm kind of a routine oriented guy. Once I get starting to do it, I like it. It satisfies me. It's safe. It's comfortable. But I think even that, to a degree, is
totally
kind of idolatry.
No, that's it. When you relate idolatry to us pursuing those elk, and this is I just think this might be a lame analogy.
No, we got to hunt next year. Come on.
I know. But I was thinking how, what if, this is such a weird thing, but what if you and I had pursued that stock? And this is going to sound weird. This came to my mind just now,
and got to the moment and then didn't pull the trigger.
Yeah. And, I think that, and here's the other thing that just came to my mind was, imagine you and I, we put that stock on and we get up there and we find out they were decoys. And I wonder how many times, the letdown from that was but we put all this time and energy, and I go, idols are decoys. You put all this time and energy pursuing it, and it's artificial. It's never going to satisfy you. And I think that's why God invites us, pursue him. Don't pursue the idols, because you can chase money. It's going to let you down. You can chase the thing. It's going to chase the approval of somebody else. It's going to let you down. And it's because it's all the artificial. It's not real. It overpromises and underdelivers.
Nobody said all this stuff is going to be easy, and this is not. This is one that really isn't, especially for me. So we hope that you guys, as you are nodding your head, hopefully hearing about all these things that you're identifying with, especially as it relates to habit and idols, that maybe some of the stuff that Pastor Mike gave you toward the end are really good steps toward helping solve this stuff, this question of allegiance and idols. So we appreciate you, as always, spending time with us on Vertical Pursuit. Go on and get the app if you haven't done that. The Vertical Pursuit app is in the App Store, and it's very cool, and it's got some really good ways to follow along and plans, and it's full of all kinds of good stuff. And it is a place you can hear the podcast along with Spotify and iTunes. What were you going to say about that?
I was going to add and hey, shout out to, I know a few of you, we heard from our last recording about sending emails in and just hearing your feedback, comments, and even suggestions on topics that we can cover. So we'd love to keep hearing from you guys. You can do that by going on to the app on the verticalpursuit.org website. There's a button you can push there called just connect, and we'd love to hear from you guys.
Sounds good. We'll see you next time on Vertical Pursuit. Appreciate you. We invite you to subscribe to our podcast, comment, or message us, and check out our website at verticalpursuit.org. Download the VP app and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.